Ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to another Both Sides podcast. We're very fortunate today to have Vince Licata, round two, as round one didn't actually end up making it out. So if you don't know, Alexander Phillips' right-hand man, or one of his right-hand man, is Vince Licata. Vince Licata has worked at PPD since 2015.
Yep.
Worked as a property manager for a few years,
Yep.
and then joined Alex's team in 2019.
Yeah. Easter 2019.
So, mate, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
The real reason why I'm really excited about this podcast, we get hounded all the time from a lot of younger agents about having a real top-notch associate come on, and we haven't had one come on for like 80 episodes.
Yeah.
So this is going to be really good. Obviously, a lot of our audience are up-and-coming young agents, and we always have really top-notch agents on here, but they talk about where they're at that moment.
Yeah.
You're coming from a completely different perspective. You've worked within the number one sales team in Australia for a few years now. Can we touch on a bit about how you got into real estate, what your life's been like, and a journey so far, just so we can give the audience a bit of an idea of who you are, and then we can delve into some fun questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in real estate as a receptionist nearly 10 years ago. I don't have any family ties to real estate. It was something I sort of just thought I'd have a shot at. And then I was fortunate enough to meet a recruiter via LinkedIn who put me in touch with PPD, got a job as a leasing agent. I didn't know the eastern suburbs. I wasn't from here. I sort of just thought, if I'm going to try real estate, I want to go to the best market. And I always was really tied to the beaches. I love the beaches.
But you're not from around here, right?
No, I grew up out west, and then decided I didn't want to sell real estate in the area where we grew up. I didn't like the way it was at the time. The markets were a bit different. I didn't like the way they sort of operated. And I thought he was a little bit more transactional and probably more of an opportunity to grow. And then, so I came over, got a job as a leasing agent, moved into property management. PPD was a lot small. Well, our property management business was a lot smaller at the time. It was a much younger business. There was only two of us in the property management team, whereas now there's upwards of 15, I think. So did that, and then met Alex very early on when I started, and the goal was always to get into sales, and I just kept hounding, and eventually I was really fortunate. In 2019 there was an opportunity to come up in the team, and Alex slid me in there, and I've been there since. So that's how I got into it, and how I ended up in Alex's team.
Mate, what a story. And when it comes down to working within this industry and working within a high-performing team like Alex's, there's going to be a lot of things that break normal associates, in my opinion, in terms of workload, in terms of volume. Now, what was your experience like as you started to have volume come onto your plate that you weren't used to? Was it a shock to you? How did you handle those?
I was really fortunate that when I had quite a large property management portfolio where I had 300 properties under management, which is a lot for, and I had one person working with me. So dealing with volume was something I was used to, obviously on a completely different scale. But one thing we did when I started in sales, which I think everyone should do, is for 6 months, I did not sell anything. I did admin. I did house prep, I did agency agreements, I did compliance, I did all the stuff that no one wants to do or that sales agents don't think they should have to do. I did.
Is that what you wanted to do? Is that what was pushed to you?
Look, I didn't want to do it. I didn't ask to do it.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing I did.
What was the thinking around why they made you do it? Because it would have been a good reason for it.
The thinking is that I should be able to control the process from A to Z. So from the appraisal of walking in and saying, you need carpet, paint, styling, gardening, then to project managing that on behalf of the vendor, doing the paperwork to sign up the vendor, preparing the property to go on the market, organising the right timeline to go, okay, painter here, gardener here, carpet here, stylist then, photos copy, floor plan on this day. This is how we're going to meet the deadline that we're working towards. And this is, so now that to me, when I go sit in front of someone, I'm so comfortable with. I don't have to say, oh no, Kevin, do you mind if we come back tomorrow with proof from our office who prepares all of our houses for sale? I can walk through a house and go, no, that needs to be changed. I think we should do carpet here. I think if you invested a few grand in washing the house, it'll actually look heaps better. And I think that instills a lot of confidence in someone you're sitting across the table from.
Oh, for sure. I think that's really interesting because I see a lot of young agents, and especially with high-performing agents too, there will always be an admin associate or an admin assistant within the team that covers a lot of stuff. You obviously had Prue in your corner when you started, is that right?
Yeah.
So she was still there when you began. Now, why did they make you go through doing all of that stuff while Prue was there? Was she helping you with it, or was it just
absolutely.
strictly
For
yours?
the first 6 months, I pretty much sat in the car with Prue every day. Like I didn't really have much to do with Alex. He was listing, selling. There was the other guys in the team. Obviously, we had a lot to do with each other, but I was reporting to Prue. I was dealing with Prue, preparing the houses, and I started during the Easter break. So we had that large selling window. It was like a 6 or 7 week window after Easter, sort of May to early to mid June before the winter holidays, which for us is generally a high stock level time of the year. So there was a lot to prepare in that time, and Alex actually wasn't even in the country; he was away. So that was my first taste of it, and where I spent a lot of time. And then that just really, essentially, the way we've been taught is that at any point, anyone should be able to call you, and you should be able to do it. You shouldn't have to go, I don't know how to type an agency agreement. I don't know what's required for this to be compliant. How do I actually get this property on the market? Like PPD is really big on their compliance. We have a whole team dedicated to it. We can tick every box and not go, oh no, Prue's sick today. We can't put this property on the market because we don't know how to do it. It's just one of us steps in and goes, yep, fine, that's no problem, you can do it. If
Next
someone
man
wants
up.
to take a holiday, go fine, next one steps up and does it.
That's awesome.
And that's how we've run the business. That's how the team's built.
Yeah, wow.
There's no titles and there's no hierarchy. It's just everyone does everything, and that's sort of how we've done it. And I think it works really well.
Works really well. We ended up at number 1, so must work. Now, it's obviously very different to another way that you guys operate, which is a very different. When we had Alex on, he was talking about the fact that you and the rest of the guys within the team will not actually call Alex's database. You'll call your own buyers and then create your own database from there, which you nurture.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important to start building your own relationships and network and not actually be touching Alex's stuff? Because usually the associate's calling all of the agent's database.
Yeah, so I think there's a few parts to it, right? One is there is very few more high-profile names in our industry than Alex Phillips. So then you come in and you're trying to create your own profile. How do you do that? Really strong relationships. How do you create really strong relationships? Not by calling someone every week going, I've got a buyer, can I show them through? Do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? You create a relationship by offering that person something. How do we do that? We do that via buyer work, or we do that via market updates and just providing a service and an advisory service to the market. And instead of asking, just giving. And eventually the time comes where you've built the trust, you've built the brand, the personal acknowledgement and the relationship to go, hey, can I have this? Whether it be their house, do they have any friends looking at selling, or whatever it may be. But you build that relationship enough that when you ring, they go, hey, Vince, how are you? Not, hello, John speaking. Do you know what I mean? And so that's part of building your own brand and building your own profile whilst leveraging, working and using the best profile you can in the business. And that's something we're really big on.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's great for the associates for sure. The one thing where I look at it is I look at the agents and I go, their database is now not going to get touched. So it ends up being on the fact that these agents now have to step up as well. Now, question for you in terms of longevity. You've been an associate for 5 years now to Alexander Phillips. He also has, is it 80 years combined total within the team of experience? Just under. That's remarkable. There's retention there. No one's really leaving. No. You see it with, for example, Matt Steinwade's team with Jordan Bull and Trevor Hamilton. It's very rare where you have that longevity and people go, like, I'm good here. What's the attraction for you? You're obviously extremely good. You can list and sell at a high clip, probably better than most agents. Is there a reason why you want to continue to be within Alex's team and not step out? Because I see a lot of agents that go, I want to be out in a year or two.
Yeah, we see it. I mean, you see it everywhere you go, right?
Yeah.
I think, like, probably firstly, it's a really, really, really good place to work. The environment that we've created in that team is like, it's really nice. It's really good. And that makes it a pleasure, to get up every day and go do the work for the duration and at the intensity. And you can put up with all that because of how much you enjoy where you go to work. But then I think another part of it is I've been really fortunate that Alex is happy to actually let go. He doesn't see us as competition for him. It truly, like, people talk about having a team, but they compete within the team. And the agent is concerned that their associate has called someone they dealt with 10 years ago at an open house and got in the door, and then they have an argument over whose lead it is.
Happens all the time.
Right? For us, it's like, no, congrats, good on you. I didn't chase that lead, or, I got it. You built a better relationship with them than what I had. Go, that's yours. So there's no need for us to compete. We're working in a competitive market with the agents that we come up against to try and come up against these guys without the name or the runs on the board that a lot of them have is really hard. So I guess it's sort of swallowing your pride a little bit and taking a longer game approach. At the end of the day, I'm in my late 20s now. I'm going to be in the industry for another 50 or so years, right? 40 or so years. So whether you become an agent in 2 years or 6 or 7 or 8 years, really, when you look back on it when you finish, is it going to make that much of a difference? I don't think so.
No.
What I think will make a difference is if you go too early, you burn yourself out, you can't make it work, you're not making any money, you're not doing any deals, you're not enjoying it because you're just losing. That's when I think you probably notice it more than whether you stayed an extra year or two and then, reap the benefits of it later.
100%. Completely agree. Now, why do you think there is such a turnover and a revolving door in the industry with sales associates? Because it happens everywhere.
I think there's probably two parts to it. I think it's the agent in one part, and then secondly, I think it's the sales associate. Probably we'll talk about the sales associate. I think with the sales associate, you and I spoke about this on the phone earlier in the week. There's a lot of pride and ego involved in it, and they're not comfortable saying, yeah, I work for Kevin or I work for Alex or, and I think what happens is that gets in their head. They look at their mates, they look at other people in the industry, and they're spending all their time just comparing instead of focusing internally. And that leads to then going, oh, there's a better opportunity at a shinier agency 200 meters down the street who said, I'm going to be a standalone agent. They'll look after me. And they jump. What happens every time you move, you're starting again, right?
Correct.
And you're just restarting. Then all of a sudden you've gone 5, 6, 7 years of starting again every 24 months. You know how hard it is. Ideally, you'd never try and start real estate again, right? It's a pain.
No way.
So if you wait out, the first 2 to 3 years are the toughest years you'll do. If you can stick through that with a mentor that actually looks after you, that actually wants what's best for you, and in a place that you really enjoy working, if you can stick through those 2 to 3 years, it might be even a little bit longer now with how the market's moved, especially in our market because it's quite competitive, all of a sudden it just starts to become enjoyable. And it starts to become something that you get more yeses than nos. You're still getting a lot of nos, but you're getting a little bit more yeses than nos. And it starts to just be a little bit easier, a little bit more enjoyable. But I don't think anyone sits down, evaluates. They all say they want to be an agent. They don't really work out how to get there. I guess sort of what I did was I said I wanted to be an agent, but then I deconstructed how to be an agent. I looked at the best agents there are today and how they got there. And what did they all do? Leverage really great agents they were working with at the time. Alex was an associate for many years and worked alongside some of the best.
Do you know how many years?
No, I don't know exactly how many, but it was a long time, especially given at that point in the industry too, when being an associate for a long period of time wasn't really a thing. Teams weren't as much of a thing as they were now.
I was an associate for 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you're an associate. I don't know why there's such a stigma around it. I think it's something to be really proud of. You're working with a great agent in a great industry. Like, you should be happy for yourself.
I think I made more money in my last 2 years as a sales associate than in my first 4 years as a real estate agent standalone.
And you also don't have the stress of hiring, firing, managing people, you know, like you've got all that.
Yeah.
And then I think the second part to the initial question is the agent themselves. A lot of agents, I believe, don't actually, I mean, it's well known throughout the industry, really good salespeople aren't necessarily the greatest managers, right? That's a given. So then they struggle with managing personalities, they struggle with managing people, they palm off the management to someone else in the team. Generally, it's a business operator or an EA, and then it starts to sort of fall apart from there. What we've done really well is keep the team really close, but that agent can never feel threatened by that associate. They need to feel empowered by that associate and look at it as, hey, this person's getting me in an extra 50, 60, 70 doors a year that I wasn't getting in. This is awesome for my business, because ultimately they reap the benefits of it financially and in a profile way anyway.
Correct.
So
when it comes down to those appointments that you're booking in,
Yeah.
are you going in with Alex, in by yourself, sending Alex by himself, or how do you operate this?
We've got free reign to decide. If it's the right thing to do, I'll 100% of the time take Alex. If I believe I've built enough of a relationship with that person and I get along really well, and I just, like, you just get a bit of a sense to it, right? Like, I probably don't actually need him here at this point.
Yeah.
And he's cool. He goes, yeah, go for it. The other thing is as well, how do you learn? You lose, right? Yeah. So, you know, it's a lot easier to take him to every single appraisal and sit back and watch, and this guy drives it, and then you walk out going, yeah, it's my lead, but like, you know, he's signed up.
Yeah.
You want to go and compete. You want to go and get thrown curveballs in a listing appointment. You want to
That's the fun part.
That's how you get better, right? And you want to, I think, especially as an associate, go, hey, I actually beat to that a really good established agent. I'm really proud of myself. How good do I feel? Then you go to a next listing appointment and you're like, I can actually do this. Let's go. Like, you start getting a bit of that sort of run on the board and that energy behind you. It's hard to beat. You can't beat that.
I remember my first sale at Manor as a standalone, you couldn't beat the feeling. Or first listing that you won, I was like, oh my God, I want a listing. And
my first ever personal list and sell was a lady that I managed her investment property for her when I was in property management.
No way.
And we signed it up like 7 months after I sold it uncontested, and it was the best feeling ever. You never forget it. It was a 2-bedroom apartment on Ocean Street, Willara. I'll never ever forget it.
And it doesn't matter how expensive it is or how cheap it is. The fact is, you did it yourself.
Absolutely. You feel like that. That's essentially what I think should be the driver for a lot of people.
For sure. Now, I want to touch a bit more on your timeline of your progression. So you said for the first 6 months, you only did admin.
Yeah.
How long did it take for Alex to give you the keys to buyers, start working with buyers, and then start working with sellers? Like, what was the time? And then going out to appraisals. What was the timeline?
So he took me to a lot of appraisals early on to learn dialogue, to sit in a living room with someone and, you know, watch the state of play. And all he used to say is, like, you know, talk about X, Y, and Z, so you're not just sitting there quiet and it's awkward. But what you should be doing here is observing body language, picking up on certain things that you learn over time, right? The more people you sit in front of, the more of that you pick up on. It becomes sort of second nature to you. But then my first sale that I managed for him was like about October that year. It was an apartment on Murray Street in Bronte. And he's like, obviously we're extremely process driven, as you know. And he said, this is the process. I want you to run this. Obviously I'll be here with you. But what he's really good at is he'll always say to you, what do you think we should do in this position? Do we sell it prior? Do we run it through? When do we increase the guide? Do we need additional opens? What should we say on the vendor report? How should we, you know, speak to the vendors? All that kind of stuff. So that started pretty early on, like October. Obviously, you know, he did more in that particular one than he might today. But all of that progression just started from there and it kept snowballing. Yep. He's always been really good. And this is like, essentially, he's let you speak to vendors from day one, because in his mind, if you're good enough to be on his team and he's selected you to be on his team, why are you not good enough to speak to a vendor? right? Like, I don't think if you're getting to that point, if you're hiring someone and say, oh, I don't know if they should speak to a vendor for 18 months, it's like, well, are they good enough to work with you? That's how I look at it. Do you know? Like,
Big time, yeah.
how much confidence have you actually got in that person? Because then what are they saying it opens when you're not there?
It's going to cost you money.
Absolutely. I think you need, I mean, you've got staff. I think you need to back every single person. Like, at the moment, if Alex diverts his phone to me, he has complete confidence that I can answer that phone, ask the right questions, book the appointment, arrange for him to call, do X, Y, and Z. And it's now just, we've built that relationship that's just expected, and that's the confidence that's there.
How long did it take for you to build up, one, market knowledge, but two, the systems, processes, and disciplines to keep your job within the number one sales team? Because the expectations would obviously be higher than most.
Market knowledge is, I think, something you're still learning every day, especially with how quickly the market changes now. Yeah. For us, like this year, obviously the market changed a little bit, and it happened like overnight. It happened. I remember there was one Saturday after opens in like mid-October. We were like, hold on, this seems a bit different out here now. And from there, we were like, okay, the market shifted. So market knowledge, we're really fortunate to sell not in a particular market, but in every single suburb, in every price point. I sold a unit earlier this year for 450 grand, right? And then a few weeks ago, we did our highest sale at 26 mil. So we see everything in between, right? So market knowledge, that's easier because we're in every suburb. We're monitoring the market every day. We're obviously doing high volume, so we're seeing it and feeling it live, right? In terms of like understanding processes and sort of the best way for that, something I did, Josh Fegan actually told me this really early on. It was like, what's your actual job as an associate? What does it mean to be an associate?
Free up the agent's time.
Yeah. So then you're a replica of, well, not a replica, but you're a representation of that agent you're working with, right? What does that agent do really well? They list, sell, and negotiate really well. Okay, cool. How do they list, sell, and negotiate really well? Everyone gets a pre-list. He does really detailed appraisals, good follow-up. So then what I did is I need to replicate that as best as I can with my own touch, right? So the sales process is the same, but
just to stop you there. How long into working the sales job were you going through this process with Josh Fegan?
I met with Josh like probably once a fortnight for the first like 6 or so months of working with Alex. We'd meet on a Saturday morning, and Alex is really big on that, on coaching. He's been really good at that stuff. So
perfect.
And Josh. Josh will tell you this. When I started in property management, he locked me in a boardroom for an hour to work on my phone dialogue and like the way you speak to people, because it was so pathetic. He was like, you cannot pick up the phone like that, and locked me in a boardroom and worked on my tone.
I would rather that instead of being brought up on stage at Blueprint in front of everyone in my first year and crumbled me in front of everyone.
Yeah. He's the most intimidating character as well. Just firing questions. So, yeah, no, I was really comfortable with Josh early.
Yeah.
So we focused on that really early on, really like from pretty much the get-go, 6 months or so in, 6 to 12 months in, 100%.
Wow. I'll speak to some sales associates. They'll call me up from around the country saying, what should I do here? What should I do there? And I'm thinking, you don't know how to get it online and you're asking me for that. Like, hasn't anyone taught you this? It's a bit insane. Like, they'll ask me for scripts and dialogues, and it's like it came out of a 1980s sales
100%.
book.
Like, some of the calls you hear, like, where'd you get that from?
No.
Have a conversation with someone. Be a person.
Why do you think some sales associate, I know we touched on it a little bit in terms of, they got to want it, it's their boss as well, but what inherent traits do you believe that sales associates have to have if they're considering coming into this industry or have been in the industry for a couple of months and are wondering if it's for them or not?
That's a really good question. I don't necessarily think there's a difference between what's required to be a good sales associate, like deep down, and a good agent. I think the sales associate is a simply less experienced version of that agent. So I think you need internal drive. I think you need attention to detail. I think you need the ability and the understanding that you will not have wins and make this really easy for many, many years, and just a real deep drive to work and enjoy it and like really get down and into it, you know?
What's your why?
My why is I just want to live a really good life, really healthy, really abundant life that I don't have to worry about anything to do with financially. And
Why?
probably because of like how we grew up and sort of where we came from. But I also just always want to be the best. Always. And that's probably the biggest deep down why is I've been, I was probably born with it, but I'm like really competitive and I just want to bring the best out of myself. I want to, I want to look back at the end of this year, which, we're nearly there, and go, did I actually give it my best crack? Yes. Was it a good year? Yeah, it was. Could it be better? Yeah, absolutely. But I gave it my best, and that's all I can ask for. I don't think you can ask for more than that.
No, man. You go hard. Now, in terms of your personal life as well, to keep such consistent high volume and also keep your head straight, there's obviously got to be some self-care on the other side of things when you're not actually at work. What does your social and personal life look like outside of selling real estate?
Yeah. I go to bed at like 8:30 at night. So my social life between Monday to Friday is really minimal.
When did that become non-existent? At what age?
24, 20 during the week, like 24, 25. Yeah, pretty young.
Yeah.
I train every day for 45 minutes to an hour. I'll spend time down at the beach here. Like that stuff for me just resets me. Once a week on the weekend, I'll go have a sauna at Icebergs with a group of friends. Some are in real estate, some are not, and just, talk like that. But my social life is, it's changed a lot. Obviously, as you get a bit older, your responsibilities have come up a lot. You expect more out of yourself. You start to take probably more of an appreciation on being fit, healthy, and how important that is mentally. So my social life now is very different to how it was. It's dinners, it's walks, it's breakfast, that kind of stuff.
Even at 24, and I was very much the same too. I remember being 24 and staying in or going to a party and leaving pretty early because I got open homes the next day. How did you navigate? Because there's going to be a lot of young guys and girls that are going to listen to this and they'll have they'll start to get anxiety and FOMO about the fact that they're going to miss out on a weekend. When it hits 4 p.m, they're saying they're going to stay inside and then everyone's pre-drinking. How did you navigate that while you were 24, 25, your mates are all going out and you're like, oh.
I just did it when I was much younger. No, I'm joking. I think again, like that boils down to your why. Like it boils down to something internal. No one can tell you to sit at home while your mates are out and not have of course you're going to have FOMO. Yeah, of course. Rather than showing a buy through to measure up a fridge space, you'd rather be at the pub with your mates on a Saturday afternoon drinking 5 beers. Like yeah, of course we're all young. Like that's more like obviously, but it boils down to why and what is why, where do I want to be in 5 years? Here. Okay, this is actually going to get me there. Where do I want to be in 10 years? Here. And I can tell you, like, you're around my age, you've seen it. So many of the guys you're partying with at 20 that were so much fun and having a lot of a good time and were the best, now that we're nearly 30, you're still doing that. And you've just, like, they're like, oh, you've done well for yourself. I was like, yeah, because you committed to it. And they're still doing the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like half the people I know are still paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely. And then what happens as well, your social group changes because your interests change. And all of a sudden, instead of going to drink 20 beers on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, or through the night, whatever, you go, actually, let's go for a walk and sauna at sunrise on Sunday morning. Those guys are out. Yeah. And what do? You have a really nice conversation and coffee with a friend that you actually walk away feeling empowered from.
Then your whole week's great too.
Absolutely. You feel clear-headed. You sit down. You feel good. You go have breakfast. I'm really lucky. I've got, a partner we spend a lot of time walking around with our dog. Like that to me is really refreshing.
And therapeutic.
It resets me.
100%. I guess in terms of that light bulb switch for you, that tipping point, when did you go, okay, I'm going to stop going out as much? Was it a gradual thing or was it an event? What made you go, oh, no, that's it?
No, I met my partner like 2 years ago now, just over, and she doesn't have much interest in that. And I guess that was a really good influence on me because it was, you can't be on two different paths for that kind of thing. And it was just really good timing sort of in how it happened, that I was getting to a point where it was probably becoming more important to behave and live a better lifestyle. So it was probably, about 2 to 3 years ago now, it really switched for me.
Yeah,
I started to notice it probably 12 to 24 months before that. And then it really,
as your body starts to get, you're like 24, 25, 26, it's not going to be that bad. And it does. Every year it gets worse.
Absolutely.
This is for the agents that have sales associates. As we mentioned before, and I see it everywhere, a lot of real estate agents are not good leaders. They're taught how to list and sell property and they're very good at it, but no one's actually taught them how to lead a sales associate.
Yeah.
What do you think Alex does so great to retain staff and also become a great leader for yourself and the team members? And where do you think agents go wrong from what you've seen as well?
Yeah, so I think from Alex, he gives us a lot of freedom, which is really important, and it empowers us to feel like we're capable, which I think is really important. He's extremely accessible, and it's a genuine care. If something's not right in your personal life or whatever, he's extremely understanding of that. So that kind of stuff. But that's probably rather than as a leader, it's probably more him as an actual person, which is hard to sort of tell someone to be like that. But I think they're probably Alex's main traits as to how he's got high staff retention and what he's done to make us feel empowered and good.
You've obviously seen quite a few people leave the industry too.
Yeah.
What mistakes do you think that those agents made with those sales associates? Is there any particular things that you've seen or heard about where agents go wrong? Because I think a lot of agents, they're not even aware of what the sales associate likes or is liking, what they're not liking, and they go ahead and do this thinking it's the right thing. It pushes them away.
Yeah.
Is there any particular key points that?
I think one of the key things probably to respect and appreciate, which might sound really simple, is everyone's really different and everyone has a really different way of doing things. And I think if you're managing someone, you need to accept and understand that person has their way. It might not be the most efficient, it might not be the best way, but your job is to guide them that this is how I would do it, but ultimately they're going to do it their way. And I think as an associate, you can't be that person you're working for. That's just really plain and simple. You need to pick the good parts of them, pick the good parts of everyone that you want, and create who you are. And I think, and that's part of, again, something you sort of learn a bit, I think, as you start to reflect back and you get a bit older. It's like, who actually am I? And what am I actually doing here? And then you go and put that into perspective and into practice when you're working every day. In the way you speak to people, the way you deal with people. If you're not a person that wants to make 100 calls a day, that's cool. Make 50, but do really well, and do 50 really good ones. Right? If you're more of a social, I see so many agents that prospect and get business by sitting down at the cafes and seeing people walking through the beach, and they're like, "Oh, actually, I need to call you." Yeah, cool. Whereas that's just not how we operate. But that's not I'm just not like that.
Yeah, you guys work very, very different. Well, not very different, but you guys work in a different way to most other agencies in terms of the way that you operate, work, prospect, and what have you. Now, when it comes down to social media, obviously a lot of young guys and girls, up and coming agents and assistants are actually I've seen assistant ads in my area. It's the assistant, assistants are on buses. I'm like, what's going on? But what would you say to the sales associates and upcoming agents or about to transition associate agents to being agents about social media spend? Because you don't have a social presence, a huge social presence online. However, everyone knows you. You obviously get tons of listings. Why do you think it's not as important for you as it is for some other people?
I don't necessarily think it's not important. I think it's something we're probably just not great at, that we can get better at. That's just to be truthful. And I think we have over the last 12 to 18 months, we've employed a social media manager and we've started to better that.
Yeah, Sean's ramped Alex's page up, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we are getting better at that. But, and, Alex actually said, which is a really good point, social media is the modern day letterbox shop, right? When was the last time you checked your letterbox? Probably not recently.
Last week after about 3 weeks.
Yeah, when was the last time you checked your Instagram? An hour ago.
Just before the podcast.
Yeah, right? So, and that's generally speaking what the market's doing. But I think where we focus and where it actually builds your brand naturally and organically for you is going back to step one again and providing a service to someone. Servicing a buyer really well, keeping a vendor up to date. Every now and then, I'll just text a vendor going, hey, Kev, hope you're well. This is just sold for X amount. Thought it might be relevant to you. If you need anything, please reach out. They might not respond, but they've acknowledged it. Or they go, oh, that's awesome, mate. Where do you think that puts us? Then there's a reason for you to call and go that next step, right? Like little things like you're just providing service for people because ultimately, I don't know too many people that aren't in real estate that are really excited to speak to their local real estate agent.
Not
consistently,
much.
Right?
Not
like,
much.
Yeah, I can think of a few things people would prefer to do.
Quite a few more.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes down to yourself, I actually had a very interesting conversation with Moses Nguyen from NGU Real Estate last week when he came on. And we were talking about sort of a shelf life for real estate agents. And we touched on Alex being an anomaly, a few other guys too. But the way that I've seen it, and I think I saw one of the guys from Bell in Queensland speak about it too recently, where once you hit a certain crescendo in terms of, work pace and what have you, the hours, the workload, once you see it and experience that, which you're obviously seeing and experiencing, I saw myself, I go, okay, I look at myself as a corporate athlete. How long are athletes, at the top of their game for? 10, 15, 20 years max at the crescendo. So do you believe there's a shelf life? Because myself and Moses have that belief that we can only run at top pace for 10, maybe 15 years, where Alex is a different cat. This is all you know. You're talking about 50 years. What's your thoughts on a shelf life?
There's definitely a shelf life. 100% there is. There's a shelf life with everything. What I think can help extend the shelf life, make it a more enjoyable process, and what I think you naturally get better. Like I can tell you for a fact, I'm significantly better at it today than I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and 8 years ago, is managing your energy, your output, and when to be on. We were just talking now, like we're coming into a period of the year where you don't necessarily need to be in the office for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Because it's just simply a quieter time of the year. So, okay, why don't we peel it back? Instead of 6 gear, like Ivan's one of my mentors, which I'm really fortunate for. He said to me 3 weeks ago, I think you should peel back to between 3rd and 4th gear. No point running between 5th and 6th anymore.
Yeah, wow.
I still did a sale yesterday. I've called my database. I've done everything, but at a slower pace. I've spent, an extra half an hour at the mornings this week down at the beach, relaxing, like having a swim, enjoying the sun, that kind of thing. I've left the office an hour earlier and gone for an afternoon walk, which I normally wouldn't do because I get home at 7 p.m. Right? And what that's done is I actually feel like I'm on holidays now because I'm like, wow, good. I'm getting to the office, a little bit later and leaving a little bit early. I've got all this time. I don't know what to do.
And things are still getting done too.
Things are getting done. Like we did a $3 million deal yesterday. We still hit the targets and, I did my opens yesterday. I'll do my callbacks today, updating vendors. We're still doing everything in a shorter time frame at a lesser tempo. Yeah. And I think what that does is it simply just gives you a little bit more longevity. And you know what? Sometimes I haven't had a holiday since the beginning of June, and we're in December now. Like I'm ready to have a bit of time off, right? And I acknowledged that probably 2 to 3 weeks ago. So I started to look after myself a bit better. Made better lifestyle choices. You might sacrifice something socially. Whatever it is, like. Even something as silly as going out to eat during the week really quickly instead of going home and forcing yourself to cook because, it's another task.
What would you say to the young guys and girls out there that might not necessarily have a good crowd of influence around them and they're saying, oh, come party. They don't have friends that say, yeah, I want to go to Bondi at 7 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Because I know some people that they don't have that option. What happens at that point?
I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily agree with the fact that they don't have the option. I think we've all got options, and I actually think it's ironic. Like I don't really love to say this, but how many times have you heard you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? And it is so true. And you really only probably understand that again as you get a bit older, but that just boils down to you personally. We've all got options. Go hang out with good influencers in your office. Go join a run club. Go do whatever. And you'll find better influences in your life and put some effort into building those relationships. If it's that important to you, you will, no problem.
In terms of rejection, this is an industry where we get rejected 24/7. You have to become used to it. I was having a chat with someone yesterday, and a lady in e-com. She's in her late 20s. I think she was doing like $100,000 a month.
Yeah,
it's insane. Now, she called me up and she goes, "Oh, should I do the podcast? Should I do a podcast on e-com? I'm afraid, blah blah blah." I'm like, is that how you did your, I want to make sure it's perfect. I'm like, well, you did the other business. Did you start from the beginning or did you start at the very top? She goes, I started at the beginning. So she put herself through the fire and through that. Why do you think in terms of agents, when they're putting the agent through the fire, because they have to go through it to understand and experience what it's like, where do you think agents go wrong with cultivating and retaining the staff when they're going through those challenging periods? I know you said, empowering the sales associate, but there's got to be something else back behind that where you're still going to be off on your own. You've been empowered, but now you're in this tricky spot.
Yeah.
Why do you think some associates aren't navigating it properly, or how did you get through those periods?
That's a really hard question.
Big growth period. Like your first listing appointment, for example, when Alex isn't there.
Well, I think you probably need to look forward to the challenge. That's one thing, and understand it's going to be a challenge, right? And I think you need to be completely comfortable with the fact it's probably not going to be perfect. That's something. And then I think it sort of just comes out, if you're that type of personality and you've taught yourself those things about what it takes to sort of get where you want to be, and it's really important to look back and go, Alex actually had that exact scenario 25 years ago when he started. So I'm not the only one going through it. Ring someone that maybe in your office is on the same level or similar level to you, or ring a mentor. I think it's important to talk through it. If you're not really comfortable with something, talk through it. That's not an issue. And then understand that you've kind of got no choice at one point, right? You either got to go and do it and get uncomfortable, or just not do it, and then I think your real estate career is probably over, or any career for that matter.
Yeah. So Vince, we've had quite a fair few viewer questions come through, and it's a very consistent theme. There's a lot of young associates which sent through questions saying, what's his top 3 advice? What's his top advice for me as an agent that's a sales associate that's just joined the industry, been in it for a year or two, not getting traction? What's his advice?
Service buyers. Number one would probably...
They always want to work with sellers though.
Oh, man, it happens in every single business. Because ultimately that's what you're taught, and that's what you think is the end game. It's actually... it really is the end game, but servicing buyers and creating relationships with buyers, Macleay Longhurst talks about this all the time whenever you hear him speak. That was actually how he got to enjoy real estate, because he was having a tough time. He just built buyers that were big fans of him, and they started turning from negative conversations to positive conversations, and now look at where he's ended up, right? So I think step 1 would be service buyers. I think step 2 would be get completely comfortable with the fact that it's not going to be easy, and just absorb that it's going to be a little bit of tough work and long work before you actually get to enjoy the fruits of it. And 3 would be find an environment, and that in environment I mean a mentor or someone to work with, an office, and an area that you want to focus on, and stick to it. It doesn't matter how competitive that market is. Agents come and go all the time and whatever. You can build a brand in any market by doing really good work to the market. Find what you want to do, where you want to do it, and do it. Back yourself.
100% back yourself in. You're not going to get anywhere unless you actually put yourself through that fire and back yourself in. Plus, if you're funny, you're not good, just leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when it comes down to these younger guys and how fast they want to progress, I took it at a lot slower of a pace. I know a lot of top agents did that too. What have you seen, not with yourself, but as an average through the PPD office from your time being there for nearly 10 years? Is it 9 or 10 years?
Yeah, the next year will be 10,
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
You've seen, obviously, for example, Christian West has come through the ranks and
Yeah.
what have you as well. What do you think in terms of those associates, where do you think they go right, wrong, and these agents go right, wrong? Like, how long do you think it's like is right 4 years, is wrong 2 years? I know
I think it's really hard to put like an
average.
exact time frame. Like Ivan now talks about the traineeship or the apprenticeship being like up to 10 years. Right? That's a long,
did.
it used to be 5 years. That's what the standard was. It was you're an associate for 5 years and you go out on your own. And the market's a lot more competitive now. Agents are probably a lot better than they were maybe like 15 to 20 years ago, I'd say. Probably with technology and how the market's evolved and the sort of expectation from the consumer on the market. I think that's what's made our industry better. So I don't. It's really hard to put a time frame on it. I would probably say after 24 months, you should start seeing some really positive signs, building relationships, people starting to know who you are. Your past client database is your best database because you have a warm lead there.
So why would an assistant not say, okay, I'm going to jump now then?
Well, yeah, I think you need to be extremely confident that if you do 20 of your own deals this year working under you if I was working directly under you and did 20 of my own deals.
And listed, sold, managed yourself.
Yeah.
Like with the help of me. But
yeah. What I would do is go back at the end of the year and work out exactly where those 20 leads came from.
I did this experiment last year.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I'll be generous and say probably just over 50% of them are from that agent you're working for's network. Whether
generous.
It be, hey?
It was generous, yeah.
Yeah. Whether it be an open house, an inquiry, just something that, right?
Yeah.
So then ultimately, if you go out on your own, you're down to what? 10, probably less. It's like 6 to 8 listings.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you're right about skill set, like, and not blowing smoke, but I sit across the table from you. You'd kill a lot of agents, like standalone agents, and you're an associate. So competition's high.
Yeah.
Very high. What would you say to those associates which are not getting the level of training from the office or the organization that they're in?
Yeah.
Like they don't have external trainers coming in or anything like that. Would you move office?
I believe an office that trains you is really important. I think actually probably more than the training itself, it shows that they care about the future of these young people coming through. That to me is probably what I look at. I think now with podcasts and YouTube and that kind of stuff, you could do a lot of learning on your own externally. And then I do think you need an office that really cares about, like PPD invested a lot in our coaching and still do.
Yeah.
Whether it be, external agents coming in for talks, going to, events, stuff that we've always done. And then I personally this year have actually gone and sought coaching externally. I was talking about earlier, I see Ivan once a month in a group setting, and that has really helped me. But, that's a cost. And when you're starting out, it's probably a cost you can't wear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Just do the Josh Fegan masterclasses, they're fine.
Yeah, listen to his 5-minute podcast with Alex every week. He's
fire.
gold.
I've been listening to them every Monday or whatever day, every Monday for like however many years.
Josh has that much content out there. You can probably train yourself for a year on it if you listen to it every day.
I think I did
Yeah.
for the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Mate, just being conscious of time, last question for you. What if you were to meet your younger self when you just started with Alexander Phillips as a sales associate? What's the one piece of advice you'd give yourself, which is the most important thing that would help with future growth? And 2, what would you tell yourself not to do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the one bit of advice I'd give myself is to significantly better buyer work, like much better buyer work than I
Rate that.
have done. And what would I tell myself not to do? I'd tell myself not to compare externally to anyone else, and I'd tell myself not to ever not be grateful for the opportunity that's in front and that you're working with. That's what I'd tell myself.
Love it. Guys, this is a sales associate that works in the number one team in Australia, and he's saying this sort of stuff. So guys, unreal. Thank you so much, Vince. Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me, man. Thank you.
Legend.